I'm here with Lieutenant Colonel Elwell, who is the historian for the Georgia State Defense Force. And Colonel, I wanted to talk with you about some of the historical items that you have here. The Army on which we're based goes back to what year?
It goes back to 1733, Clark, when Oglethorpe, the founder of Georgia, brought the militia with him to settle Georgia. You see the date there, 1733. So that's our predecessor, the volunteer militia, 270 years ago. Is where we came from, people that came before us. And defended Georgia actually against the Spanish invasion in 1742, called the Battle of Bloody Marsh. A lot of folks in Georgia have heard that, but that was a militia, mainly a militia victory. Our first test, our first trial. And we passed it. That's why we're speaking English today instead of Spanish.
And over the years, what is now called the Georgia State Defense Force has been involved in so many actions for our state and our country. In World War II, we were a huge force, were we not?
Yes. During the World War II years, there were 35,000 Georgians that served in the State Defense Force. Now, a Georgia Guard, they called it. And when they were recruited, the younger people got drafted. They got sent overseas to the Pacific and Europe to fight. So toward the end of the war, all that were left were the old men and young boys. But about 10,000 remained at the end of World War II. And after the World War II was over, they really disbanded. The Georgia Guard was no more. The home defense was no more for 25 years. Until we were reconstituted as the Georgia State Defense Force in 1985. And when that happened, they wouldn't let those fellows wear the uniform of the regular Army or the National Guard. They made them wear a different uniform, which was what we call the perma-press, the OD green, and they wore a baseball cap, which said Georgia State Defense Force. And they pinned their rank between the GSDF. So we wore that, and there's some fellows in the State Defense Force right now that wore that uniform and have this hat. They've come by here and said, hey, I wore that hat back in 1985. So
let's talk about uniforms for a minute, if you don't mind, because over here I have a uniform that looks similar to what George Washington might have been imagined to have worn during the Revolutionary War.
Revolutionary War. That's a Revolutionary War coat. George didn't wear it, but our militia and Continental Army wore that type of uniform.
How about this one here?
You recognize that? That's a Confederate coat from the Civil War. All of the Confederate forces were militia. There was no regular Confederate Army when the Civil War broke out. So they were all homegrown units. And this is a typical called butternut. This is not the official gray issued uniform that many of the Southern troops wore. So this is Civil War.
And here I see something that looks like, is that World War I or between World War I and World War II, or is that us right here?
Well, that's trying to recruit people, and I don't have my glasses on. You've got your glasses, so what does that say?
Georgia
Please help
citizen
me.
soldiers by joining the Historical Society of the Georgia National Guard. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's our current recruiting poster for the Historical Society of the Georgia National Guard. Okay. We're trying to build a museum, Clark. This is our museum right now, this display. But we have many more. Corporal Tedder over here has many artifacts, and we are collecting artifacts that we would like to display in a larger museum. But that takes money. So this is a historical society that's trying to raise money, have members join. I've got a membership form for you. Before you leave, I'd like to have you take it with you.
I have a question for you, because when the soldiers of the State Defense Force see this and they find out what history there is, are they shocked?
Oh yeah. Most of them don't know that we go back 270 years. They don't know what the people did before them. And so that's what we're trying to do here, is trying to inform and educate our soldiers that we do have a long and honored tradition and a history, and this is just a little sampling of it to maybe pique their interest so they'll try to find out a little more about it. and read about it, and talk to us, and ask us questions. So that's why we're here. We're here in the mess hall because there's lots of traffic through here. Everybody likes to eat, so everybody will come through here and at least see. And we've had a lot of people come over here and say, well, what's this all about? Tell us a little more about this. So we, assistant historian and myself, we love history, so we can talk about it.